Well, greetings strangers, JayReimsGaming here. Welcome to another installment of the Beginner's Guide series. Now today we'll be going over the pros and cons of this particular build, where to put your abilities, your attributes, good starter items, and an overview showcasing the talents of this particular build at the end of this video, so stay tuned. So if you haven't heard by now, I live stream each week, Friday through Sunday between 4 and 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on your favorite streaming site. Now subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a content release. Don't forget to check out our community Discord, Champions of Rhymes. All the links are in the description down below. Now with further ado, let's return to your scheduled program. So let's go ahead and go over the pros and cons. Now the pros of the Whirlwind Bard is that it is actually really easy to learn. It's very easy to utilize leap. You can get over moats and rivers and stuff like that, and you just have to point and click. And you can get really tanky with the high health pool due to the battle order shout, as well as high mobility with natural and item selections. Now some of the cons of this build are that the skills scale slow throughout the difficulties without decent gear. The low overall damage without crushing blow is a hindrance, as well as when you get into the Nightmare and Hell difficulties, you will be weak against physical immunities until you get that lovely Sunder Charm. And last but not least, not the greatest ladder starter without that mobility of teleport. But that doesn't always stop people from trying. Now, as far as your attributes are concerned, it's going to be pretty much similar to all the other ones that we've talked about earlier in these builds. Now, you're going to put as much strength and dexterity that is required to wear your gear. You can consider putting a little bit into energy as opposed to vitality because you are going to be mana hungry if you don't have a lot of mana leech when you do your whirlwinds. So it's important to kind of think if you're going to do a split, a 3-2 or 4-1 split of Vita and energy is really good if you don't feel like you're not getting enough mana. Otherwise, if you feel like your mana capabilities are pretty good, go ahead and dump the rest of it into vitality. So when it comes to mercenaries, I would definitely consider getting the Might Mark from Act 2, which grants you the Aura of Might. When active, the aura increases the damage done by you and your party, which reflects onto your character. And just like the other mercenaries, they're going to be very similar with the Worm's Skull Helm or something that'll give you some life leech and some resistance. You're going to go with a smoke plate armor as well as an insight to continue to have that meditation aura. Now, one of the wonderful things about D2R is its randomness, also known as RNG or random number generator. So some of these items you might not get along the way. Some of them you'll have to farm when you get into Nightmare or even up to Countess to get some of these different runes, but this is kind of the setup I think is really good up to this level and proceeding into Nightmare. So on your weapons swap, more than likely you'll have a staff of teleportation, but if you don't really feel like you need that teleport, you can always go with dual wielding spirit swords to get that extra +4 skills when you do battle orders. Now as far as the main hands, I usually like to go Malice and the black rune words in maces, and this is because you're going to have that really high crushing blow chance, as well as having things like chance of open wounds, monster heal, and defense per hit and things like that, which are really great when it comes to melee. In the helm, I went with an Avenger Guard lore. Now what's really great about using different helms that are only for Barbarian is you can get plus to skills. So definitely be on the lookout with different helms that only Barbarians can wear, such as the Avenger Guard that have plus to skills. You can get things like plus to masteries as well as things like plus to whirlwind and stuff like that. So be on the lookout for those. I went with the Eye of Eldritch because it does give +1 to skills as well as life stolen per hit. The Hustle rune word for my armor, Venom Grip Demon Hide gloves, the Saigon's Wrap plated belt, Goblin Toe light plate boots, as well as dual Manald rings. Now there are many other things that you can add to this build or even supplement with different items that you feel are going to be better for your build, like things like Hand of Brock or the Leap boots, things like that. But in addition to that, you can also consider the Smoke rune word, the Rhyme rune word, as well as your magic find items such as Gold Wrap, Chance Guards, dual Nagel rings, and there are also some really good set items you can consider as well, like the Angelic's Amulet and Rings, which will increase your attack rating, damage goes to mana, things like that. And even the Cathin's Amulet and Rings, which would also give you another high value with life stolen per hit. Now, I tried different variations of this build with a focus of Whirlwind, but I think this is what I ended up with, and I believe this is probably the best way to go until you get into the higher and more difficult areas of the game. So under Warcries on the skill tree, I went with 1 point into Howl, Shout, Battle Orders, and Battle Command. On the combat skill trees, I put 1 point into increased stamina, increased speed, iron skin, natural resistances, and put a base of 20 points into mace mastery. And last but not least, I got all of the way down into Whirlwind and Berserk, and I think that's really important. I think that's something to definitely consider. I put 1 point into Bash, Leap, Stun, Concentrate, and Leap Attack, with maxing out as far as I could into Whirlwind. And then the last bit of points I had, I dumped the rest into Berserk for more centric for solo attacks on individual mobs. And what's great about Berserk is this actually does magic damage, which actually gets around some of the immunities if you have to. So Battle Orders improves the maximum mana, life, and stamina for you and your party. Now, what's really great about Battle Orders is that it affects you and your mercenary. So don't forget to not only use Battle Orders, but to Battle Command first, which increases all current skills levels for you and your party. Cast Battle Orders, and then also cast Shout, which will increase your defense. So when you have it hotkeyed to your keyboard, you're just going to do one of each. That way you have all of that extra life, you got that extra mana, you got the extra defense and everything that you need. Now the combat masteries are passive. So the mace mastery will improve your mace fighting skill. So this one increases my attack rating and damage. So increased stamina just basically means that you can run farther and longer before you have to walk, which is great. So you don't have to keep, hitting those stamina potions as you run around in the world. And increased speed increases your walk and run speed, which stacks quite a bit with your hustle, and it just makes you run around a lot quicker, which is actually a lot of fun. Iron Skin improves your defenses by a percentage, as natural resistance also increases your all resists. So Whirlwind is a whirling dance of death that cuts a path through the legions of your enemies. Carries attack rating by 110%, damage by 9%, and that goes up as your skill levels go up. Now this is your area of effect, or AoE damage. Now what's really great about this is you can hit a lot of mobs at a time, and when you have a lot of that crushing blow, it mows down enemies a lot faster than if you didn't have it. So Berserk actually increases your attack rating and attack damage, and actually turns it into magic damage, which allows you to get around of physical immunities. So let's go ahead and run around in the Rocky Waste here, and I'm going to show you kind of what this build can do. Let's go ahead and buff up. Let's make sure Mr. Azrael gets our buffs. I'm going to run around here. As you can see, I run very, very fast. So here's a nice group here. As you can see, with all the mana after hit, it keeps my mana up. I don't really have to worry about these guys because my life leech and my mana leech are so high that it doesn't really look like they do much damage to me, which is actually pretty cool. Now what's really great about this build is you do have that leap, which allows you to get around stuff, get over stuff. So if you can't really pass through it, it's really possible that you can actually jump over it if it's not too far. And so let's go ahead and do Berserk here. So here's a couple of guys. You can see I do a lot of damage and do a lot of harder damage to single targets with this particular ability. Now some people might say this might be the better ability to use, and depending on the situation that you're doing, it might be. And so when you get a big pack, definitely consider using Whirlwind. When you go down to a few more mobs, then you can consider doing Berserk and doing more single target damage, and taking those guys out one by one. I actually really enjoy doing my playthrough of the Barbarian. Now, although your melee damage will feel rather low in a comparison to a caster, once you start getting those needed items with Crushing Blow and Open Wounds, you will really start to see this build really shine. Now, Whirlwind is rather fun to play, and with the additive of Berserk, you can defeat your enemies that have immunities to physical damage. You can also use Leap and run away to avoid enemies until you get that Sunder Charm as well. Lastly, don't forget that you cannot life or mana leech on undead monsters. Well, champions, thank you again so much for watching till the end of this video. It does help in the battle against the almighty algorithms. Now, if you feel like my content was worth the watch, then consider subscribing to my channel, leaving a like, and lastly, leave a comment on this video with some feedback on how much you enjoyed it, or even how I can make these videos even better for all new players to enjoy. Are you ready to play? Let's play!